Here in the United States, and presumably elsewhere, there is a phenomenon of pro-free market right-wing libertarianism. It's an economic philosophy as well as a political party. The internet seems to have an abundance of them, particularly here on YouTube. Some minor celebrities have even come out as libertarians, such as Drew Carey, Howard Stern, and Penn Jillette of the magic duo Penn and Teller. Perhaps you've encountered the American Libertarian Party, a party which uses a big government statue as its symbol, and their world's smallest political quiz, aka the Nolan test, a propaganda device designed to make you feel like a rugged, macho individualist if you answer the questions contained therein correctly. Maybe you have some familiarity with former presidential hopeful Ron Paul, maverick Texas politician whose supporters had some measure of presence on YouTube in the 2004 and 2008 presidential elections. Much of Ron Paul's populist-sounding rhetoric was directed against the Federal Reserve, as if that's the only harmful greed in our society worth combating. Mayhaps you've had the misfortune of being exposed to the ironically named objectivists, followers of the pseudo-philosophical fiction writer Ayn Rand. Then there's the radical fringe of the right libertarian ideology, the anarcho-capitalists, who strangely believe that capitalism can exist just fine with no state whatsoever. In any case, all serve the function of being a red herring, an ideological dead end for the working class. Unlike more garden variety class enemies of the proletariat, the right-wing libertarian concedes the problematic and abominable nature of the system of corporate rule and its socialism for the wealthy, e.g. bailouts and corporate subsidies, and calls for its removal and replacement by something else. The something else they want to replace it with is a variety of pure capitalism untainted by government intervention into the affairs of the market. They want a completely privatized society with some sort of minimal state, or absolutely none whatsoever in the case of the anarcho-capitalists, to ensure the negative rights of its citizenry, a right from something rather than a right to something, protecting what they regard as the utmost values that a society should preserve, that is, life, freedom, and property. Right libertarians desire that all goods and services are provided privately via the market, which may or may not include police protection or fire protection, depending of course upon the flavor of libertarianism we're discussing. Generally, all argue for the radical minimalization or sometimes abolishment of taxes as a form of theft. The biggest problem at the very outset, were we to take the right libertarians, or propertarians, as I like to call them, at their word, is that no such social order exists currently or has ever existed. Of the roughly 195 nations on planet Earth, not one of them conforms to the idealistic vision of society as laid out by the right libertarians, with the possible exception of Somalia, which I've read corresponds to anarcho-capitalist ideas. Some of them will suggest that the sort of social order which existed in the United States somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 to 150 years ago was something akin to a property-oriented libertarian society. They generally mark it somewhere prior to the institution of the income tax. This can seem true at first to the uninformed because no one from that period is still around to remember it. It's true that the federal government was less involved and didn't have quite as heavy a hand as it did in the 20th century and does today, but this power vacuum wasn't exactly empty. Instead, it was filled by local and state governments, and there were plenty of taxes, most of which were various property taxes or head taxes. It must also be taken into account that this period in United States history was prior to the Industrial Revolution coming to this country, and that it was, at that time, an agricultural nation of farmers. The laws from that era would be an anachronism today. And let us not forget the American state's role in the enforcement of the institution of slavery through the enforcement of the property rights of slave owners, as well as the liquidation of native peoples. I'm not really certain how libertarian those things are in the minds of the right libertarians, propertarians, but I certainly wouldn't hold those up as exemplars to be followed by anybody. The right libertarians, or propertarians, like to imagine their fantasy social order as being devoid of force and coercion. Their literature speaks at length about the state's initiation of force against property holders, and the American Libertarian Party's membership form contains a pledge which reads, quote, "I do not believe in or advocate the initiation of force as a means of achieving political or social goals," end quote. Unfortunately for them, property in the real world requires force to enforce it. As French anarchist thinker Pierre-Joseph Proudhon succinctly put it, property is theft. Property, in the case of land ownership, is when a person claims a parcel of land for their own exclusive use. What could possibly justify exclusive use of what nature has bestowed upon us? Land existed before we came around, and it will continue to exist after we're gone. It's a mere social abstraction to seize or by some other means acquire a parcel of land and declare, "This is mine exclusively. No one else can use it without my permission." Nature certainly doesn't recognize our arbitrary land property boundaries, and neither do people generally, unless forced to do so by some coercive means, a state with well-armed enforcement agents, or sufficient force of arms by the property owner. People generally won't pay rent or allow themselves to be evicted from their homes off of someone's property without something coercing them to go along with that without them resisting it. Karl Marx, whose wisdom and insights libertarians deny, teaches us that all states are instruments of coercion, serving the function of enforcing the rule of the dominant social class, which under capitalism is the bourgeoisie, the class which owns the means of production. What suggests that this would not be the case under a hypothetical, libertarian, pure, free market social order? Are we to believe they wouldn't require a vast police force, army, judges, and prisons to enforce private property as all capitalist states have in the present and past? How exactly would a right libertarian society suppress or control the labor unions and strike, which would invariably manifest, as happened in the United States during the second half of the 19th century? What would be meaningfully different about a right libertarian society so as to not require these things? And if a society contains these elements, can it be truly described with the term libertarian? This, to us Marxists, makes right libertarianism a glaringly self-contradictory idea. Were it to be actually realized in the realm of fact, rather than just in the realm of ideas, it would immediately create a set of conditions that would result in its negation. So not only has the sort of society advocated by right libertarians never existed, it cannot exist. This suggests that right libertarianism is not an ideology based in material reality, but only in the realm of ideas, making it an idealist movement in a sort of philosophical sense. The crux of the persuasive appeal used by the right libertarians or propertarians to try to convince working people of the merit of their ideas is the efficiency argument. It goes something like this, and I'm quoting from one of them now. Quote, "Anything the government gets into, it becomes inefficient, quality drops, and costs rise." End quote. They argue that freer markets will result in more competition, and with more competition will come more efficiency, thus resulting in more jobs and more goods and services at lower prices for everyone. A rising standard of living across the board. Like Ronald Reagan in the 80s and beyond, they suggest that a rising tide lifts all ships, and that wealth from the bourgeoisie will trickle down to everybody. But what sort of efficiency are we talking about here, and who are its chief beneficiaries? As mentioned earlier, the period in United States history that bears the greatest similarity, without being completely identical, to the sort of society propertarian libertarians advocate, or right libertarians, is the 19th century. It was an era before the evil statist income taxes, and way, way before the oppressively interventionistic OSHA, or Occupational Safety and Health Administration. During this time, the efforts of the American working class created massive wealth for the bourgeoisie, but labor conditions were grindingly nasty, rough, dangerous, and unpleasant. 80-plus hour work weeks were commonplace, and pay was low. One industrialist was known to have stated, quote, "Any man who pays more for labor than the lowest sum he can get it for is robbing his shareholders," end quote. For some jobs, employers preferred to hire children, sometimes as young as 4 years of age. One example of this is children hired to work in coal mine shafts, too small and narrow for adults. These children were typically typically subjected to the same sort of unpleasant and dangerous conditions as the adults were subjected to, and like adults, worked long hours, typically between 10 and 16 hours a day. Meanwhile, U.S. industrialists accumulated massive fortunes from the sweat of the proletariat. Just to name a few, shipping and railroad man Cornelius Vanderbilt had a net worth of $143 billion, that's in 2007 dollars. Steel magnate Andrew Carnegie's net worth was $298.3 billion in 2007 dollars. And last but definitely not least, oil man John D. Rockefeller is estimated to have been worth a whopping $663.4 billion in 2007 dollars. So I ask again, efficient for whom exactly? Right libertarians, as mentioned previously, like to prattle on about how competition creates efficiency and lowers prices in markets. But in what came to be known as the Gilded Age in the United States, the American bourgeoisie organized trusts to combine companies, reduce competition, and increase profits through such means as price fixing and customer and market allocation agreements. They sought to use the massive wealth and influence they had accumulated through the free market system to negate it by creating monopolies. The mechanism, which under capitalism is alleged by right libertarians to create a better, fairer society, is undermined when the opportunity presents itself by the very wealthy class who they would like to be as unrestrained as possible in their business practices. How would right libertarians expect competition to survive in a truly free market without state intervention? In conclusion, right libertarianism is a red herring. It's an ideological dead end for the working class. Right libertarians are like snake oil peddlers, holding up a truly free market as a cure-all tonic which will successfully address all of society's ills. They exclaim, just leave everything to the market. The market is wise. The market is efficient. The market is self-correcting. It'll cure what ails you. When you encounter them, remember to read between the lines of what they say for the real gist of what they're trying to sell you, who their ideas will really end up benefiting, and send them packing. The working class, in order to achieve a forward trajectory, needs to base itself upon a class analysis, not crackpot delusions from small-time bourgeois who resent not being big and powerful enough so as to be able to take advantage of socialism for the wealthy. This can only serve to distract us and siphon off our righteous indignation at corporate rule into futile, safe, and even harmful endeavors which actually run counter to our interests. We need to focus our efforts into building class consciousness and socialism, not waste our time on red herrings.
Thank you for your attention. This has been a Comrade Banana Head production.